Okay, can you guys hear me okay? Did it. All right, good. Your faces, thank you for being patient for a few minutes while I transitioned from phone to yeah, yay for my gas tank. Doing whatever it needed to do to make that gas last just long enough to get to the gas station. It's good to see everybody. I love seeing some meal prep going down. Good work. I am excited for our call tonight. There's not really, so no announcements this week that I can think of, other than let's focus on the topic for tonight. I want to definitely have time to Q&A at the end. And so as I'm talking, I want you to think about questions that you have. Last week, we kind of did a summary of, here's the couple things that create physical change about, how we incorporate walking, strength training, all of that. You put those things together consistently and you see physical change when you put them together. But I wanted to focus specifically on movement tonight because we sort of have a different approach, even different language around movement. So I thought we would talk about it, and then we could, So in Fitme, we often call it movement, and movement covers, in my mind, two categories. One is exercise movement. So exercise movement is something that you're doing that's in some way. And I also want to categorize exercise movement as something you're going to need to recover from. Then that falls under the movement umbrella, which is more like walking or like movement or just moving your body, greasing the gears, walking around, whatever is like a non-stressful like movement of your body falls under that movement too. And what I like to think about, we call it one of our basics, our Fitme basics, or our default daily minimum of 30 minutes every day. And the reason our default is because typically, like within diet culture, but within a lot of myths around fitness, you're either on an exercise routine or you're not. There's no in between. And I think oftentimes we actually think that that gives us I'm injured, I can't exercise. Guess I can't do anything. My life is real busy, can't make it happen, can't join the gym, guess I can't do anything. When really we can, if we accept that we want to move our body for 30 minutes, then at a minimum, sometimes that movement can be exercise, and sometimes that movement can just be walking or doing a YouTube yoga class or whatever. So I want you to think about every single day, did I move my body for at least 30 minutes today? And it doesn't always have to be in one chunk. It might be like 10-minute walk, 10-minute walk, 10-minute walk. That can, but that's kind of our minimum. And why do we want to do that? Because it helps our body feel our best. Like, yes, does it contribute? Does it contribute to gaining strength and building muscle? Yes. But and our bodies are sedentary and we are sitting, we tend pain if we do that a lot. We also tend to put on weight. If we go, like if you went from a job where maybe you were a teacher and you were walking around a lot, maybe your kids all day, and then all of a sudden you went home for COVID and started teaching online, and you're like, now you're doing an online job and you're just teaching online. A lot of people who do that experience 5 to 10 pounds of weight gain. And it's because they went from walking around to sitting. And so when we're sedentary, our bodies just start to slow down. And so our movement umbrella, a minimum of 30 minutes every day. Now, I want to talk about those two types of movement and how to incorporate them. If your goal is weight loss, you should be doing, we really all should be doing both, but I'm doing the walking movement every single day. If your goal is weight loss, I want you to think about walking a minimum of 30 minutes every day. Or if your goal is body composition change, like I don't care, like if you're like, I could care less about the scale, I want to have a little less body fat and a little bit more muscle, we're talking about fat loss, then you should every single day. And if your goal is not, then on days that you're not doing exercise. If you're not going to boot camp class, you're not going to CrossFit or doing whatever, then it should be a walking day just for your own like mental health, mobile, all those good things. And so I was explaining client this week, a Fitme client in our Fitme family, about walking and why it's so cool, because it usually doesn't amount of recovery. Now, if you are starting from no walking at all, then walking might actually be a workout for you, and that's fine. There's no shame, there's no disappointment in that. That's just where you're. For a lot of us doing a, especially if you break it up, 10-minute, not going to be like laying in bed that night super sore and tired because you did those walks. Now, if you are, again, those are almost like exercise activities for you to start. But typically walking doesn't require a lot of recovery. And so that's awesome because we're just getting movement in. We're getting, we're going from sedentary to moving more but we're not having to maybe get extra sleep or eat differently or deal with sore muscles or anything like that. Our body just doesn't need as much recovery from that, which is great. Requires recovery, absolutely requires recovery, and that is normal. So strength training program, and again, we want everybody in Fitme, so Fitme is made up to be doing strength training. So we want everybody to be working towards getting a minimum of 3 strength training sets want to get you to, whether that again is something you're following a strength program, you're getting your strength class, all of those things are fine. You could even be doing bodyweight strength at home, but we want everybody to get to a minimum of 3 times a week of strength training. And when you're doing strength training properly, it requires recovery. I always say it's like basic strength training, and that's like putting in the cake mix, and then you can have the nutrition, like you can put in the water and stir it all up. But unless you are baking the cake, you put it in the oven, you're not getting cake, you're just getting mush. And so that combination of nutrition plus rest is where all the magic happens, where your body actually repairs your muscle, rebuilds, your brain connects to the muscle and said, let's get stronger. It does all those cool things. And so when we are sore, why we're telling you, we're not saying we want you to do strength training exercise 7 days a week. It's not because we don't think you can do it. It's because you actually wouldn't be able to recover from it. Because we need to have recovery with our exercise. Now, I wanted to do a couple of just sanity check things around recovery. Typical muscle soreness shouldn't last more than 2 to 3 days. This is your very first time working out and you way overdid it, it could last longer. But generally 2 to 3 days, your muscles should feel sore. If you are getting enough water, you're getting enough sleep, and you're getting adequate nutrition. So if you are feeling that, then that's a like, hey, question mark, I need to chat with my coach about this to make sure I'm getting enough recovery. So typically 2 to 3 days. Another important thing for you guys to know around exercise is that muscles adapt faster than joints. Faster. So what that means is that you faster than your joints. And so you've got to be patient with your joints. So for example, I'm going to go running. I feel good to go running, and I'm going to do some like leg strength stuff. And then I'm going to go run some sprints. And you might be strong enough to do both of those things, but then your ankles are sore or your knees are sore because you haven't been doing those things. So you've got to be patient with your joints because it's to adapt than it does your muscles. And so if you start to feel, if you're doing joint pain, then that's a clue that your joint's not adapted yet. And you may need to, again, either build in more recovery or back the weights off a little bit or work on your mobility, right? Like maybe you just need to spend some time stretching, some time doing some things that are like supportive for your joints. And so again, that's just another like sanity check around the exercise piece. The other thing about exercise, and I mentioned this, I think last week or the week, by definition, we are creating what like trainers call an adaptation. That is what you are doing. So for example, if you can't do any like from the floor, And then I put you over there on my countertop, right? There's my countertop right there. And I say, I want you to do 5 push-ups on the, and you're like, yep, I can do those push-ups on the incline. And so you give me 5 awesome, perfect push-ups on the incline. And we do 5. So you rest, you do another set of 5, you rest, you do another set of 5. You've done 5 push-ups right there. You just did strength training. You did a 5 by 5, a press with your, that's awesome. So then you wake up tomorrow and you're sore and you're like, my arms are sore. And maybe that last set you couldn't even finish because it was really hard. You did your first couple sets of 5 and the last set was hard. So you sleep, you eat your Fitme plates, you do all the things. A day or 2 later, you're not sore anymore. You do another set with me. We're doing 5. You do them. This time it feels better. You finish them. The next day you're a little bit sore, but less. And then we come back and like, let's do 5 by 5 again. Push-ups right there on my countertop. And you do all 5 by 5. Not only do you finish it, but you're not sore anymore. You're like, I did it. I got it. It might not happen in a week. I'm just giving you that for an example. Your body to the stimulus, to that exercise. Awesome, right? Like you went from not being able to do it and making you super sore to being able to do it, make you sore anymore. So guess what you don't get to do anymore? 5 by 5 to that count because you've adapted to that. So by definition, strength training is as your body adapts, you either need to add weight or add reps. So I could have you do 5 by 7 push-ups. Now that might be hard again. Or we could lower that countertop and now I can over there and it's harder and we just do 5 by 5. Now they're hard push-ups again. You barely finished the last set. Cool. That's how you do strength training. And so I just kind of want to give you that piece also as a sanity check. If you've been doing the same strength training workouts for a long time, you're no longer sore and they're easy. They aren't doing anything. About how walking doesn't require recovery. If your exercise doesn't require recovery either, then it's not providing you with that stimulus. You want it to be a little bit hard at the end of your whatever it is that you're doing. And so that's just something to think about, as you're doing both strength training and like more like walking style movement. What is the difference? What should it feel like? And walking's progressive too. So again, if your goal is weight loss and you are, that 30 minutes every single day, like we talked about, and then one day it's just feels like nothing, you might need to add a little bit of time to it, or maybe everything's plateaued and changes for a while and then now you're not. You might need to make it a little, need to walk a little faster or add a little time or pick a hill or something to mix in there just to make it a little bit more challenging. And so it still shouldn't require a lot of recovery, but it shouldn't, we adapt to that too, which is awesome. Our bodies are we all have the ability to get stronger. And so just in case there's only one thing you remember from tonight's call and you're like, Christy, thanks for sharing all that other stuff. I forgot everything you said. The thing that I want you to remember is your body is incredible and it has the ability to adapt and get stronger. Every single one of you can get stronger. And all you have to do is start. Every single one of you can get more fitness and capacity to do things. So if you're like, I can only walk a half a mile right now, it's pretty hard. You have the capacity to build that to more. If I one day dream of doing a pull-up, or I one day want to do a heavy, you have the capacity to get to that point. And so then we circle back to all the things we always talk about. Like, do you have clarity on what you're doing? Are you putting it in consistency? Are you talking to your coach about how to actually follow through? All of that good stuff. Tonight's call is again about movement. And what I want you to think about is, what does your weekly movement look like? And I want you to talk this week. So your target is to talk to your coach and tell them what you do for movement. What do you do on X? Are you doing strength programming? We write strength programming for a lot of you. Are you doing that strength program, your own thing? Are you going to a class? And then what are you doing on your best days or your days that you're not exercising? Are you walking? Are you doing a YouTube yoga class? Are you swimming? What are you doing? And so make that movement plan for yourself what it is. If you haven't actually considered it, it's probably not happening the way it should be. Sharing it with your coach gives you some structure and accountability. You can even ask your coach to put it in your app there for the days of the week that you want. So if you want to do strength training on Tuesdays and Thursdays, like on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, you can have that put in there for you. But I want you guys to plan out what it is that you do for. So I want to use the remaining 12 minutes to kind of Q&A around movement. It can be, I'll answer any question that you guys have around exercise, around walking, around building strength, around recovery, around using exercise for weight loss. We didn't even myth bust around that, but I mean, you didn't hear me once say like, go do 1 hour of boot camp so you can. So just, we're going to throw that piece right out the window. That's not a part of how we do movement. Anyways, it's not a great mental place to be in to exchange exercise for food. It just doesn't feel right for most of us, but also it tends to not make any sense because even if you use a tracker, so this is important too, last piece that I shared before we Q&A, if you use an Apple Watch, a Fitbit, a whatever, to track your actual exercise. So it's telling you at the end of it, like you just burned 500 calories at CrossFit class. Here's the thing, that's probably not accurate. These wearables are really wearable to themselves. And so does it mean you get to eat 500 calories more food? It doesn't. It's probably wrong. And again, like we don't want to play that game of like exchanging this for that. It's just not great long term, but also it's not accurate. So the only thing it can be accurate against is measuring against itself. So for example, if you want to use it like, hey, this class was really hard. It says I burned 500 calories. That's the most I've ever output in a class because I every class and usually it only says 300. Well, you're comparing it to itself. So it probably was the hardest class you've ever done. It might have been the most put into a class. And so you can use that piece. Just don't think of it as like, oh, I just earned 500. Even though MyFitnessPal does that for people, on drives me bananas. So if you just set up a plain old file and link it to a wearable, it will actually add food based off of your exercise. Exercise, not your overall. So what questions do you, again, any question around movement, walking, strength training, adaptation, all that good stuff? What do we?
I have a question. So we have our restorative. Should we be doing our restorative exercises and a workout? We just be concentrating on our restorative exercises for now.
Which one, like what exercises, like Tori exercises?
Yeah, Tori exercises.
Well, it just depends. And like, it really does depend on specifically you and your goal. Like if you're exercises to address the pain, then you're not going to want to do exercises that make the pain worse, right? But do movement that doesn't make pain worse, then I would say absolutely. That doesn't make the pain worse, then absolutely do it. Like right now I have a thumb injury, so I'm like working around my thumb, but I'm walking and I'm not changing the fact that I'm doing some kind of strength work. I'm just modifying how I'm doing it. I think maybe try to do some things that don't make pain worse.
Okay. Thanks.
Good question. Now, if I exercise 6 days this week and I'm really sore, so I'm going to go to like a yin yoga class, restorative exercise, that's kind of different. That's almost like using like breath work or like a low stress setting to kind of like help your body recover. Way to define like restorative exercise. What other questions do we? It can be myth busting too.
I have one, Christy.
Yeah.
So walk. Does, let's say, CrossFit and then count as both? Cumulative. So I can't walk because it's cold and rainy and I'm not about that life. If I go and do CrossFit on a normal day, I do CrossFit and I walk. So does CrossFit and something else give me the same, do I reap the same benefit?
Like, it just depends. Like, if you're doing the kind of yoga that's like chill, laying on the ground, it's probably not giving you the same movement benefit that like walking does. But if you did something that is in that same category as walking, I don't know if you would do this or not, but like say like a YouTube, I don't know, like freaking dance class or something, but like low key your body around, then to me that counts. I think housework counts. To be honest, if you're like aggressively doing housework and you're just running all around, to me that's the same as walking outside. You're up and you're doing stuff.
I'll take that.
Yeah. Sometimes I get more steps from doing housework than I do from chasing a toddler. What other questions do you have? Good questions.
Is there best time to do exercises? You hear people say, oh, point, you get a better result, or it's more efficient, or you work your muscles more. Is there like any time, or depending on when you're eating, your schedule permits, that is better than the other?
The best, the most right answer, I think, is the best time is the time you're willing to be consistent. And so that part is most important. So if you're like, I hate working out in the morning, mornings aren't for you. And so I don't care if somebody says it's better to work out in the morning. If you won't do it, it's not best for you. However, there are a couple time of the day things to consider. If you're typically like a daytime exerciser and you switch to nights, it will impact your sleep. Some people have a hard time going to sleep after they work out at night if they're not typically a night exerciser. So jumping around can be challenging for your body. But the other thing I would say is if you're getting less than 6 hours of sleep, then getting up early to do a workout probably isn't helping you as much as you think it is. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to get up, I don't get any sleep, but I'm going to go ahead and get up an hour and a half early to go to CrossFit, probably not helping you as much as you think it is, because the sleep would probably be more beneficial. But really that's it. It's just when you want to do it. There's no better
Got it.
time. Yeah.
Got it.
Unless you're an athlete and you're competing in something, in which case you should train in the same timeline that you would compete, right? Like if you are somebody who's like going to run a 10K, or you're going to run a marathon and you know that marathon starts at 6 a.m. Well, if I were you, I'd be running in the mornings, because your body's going to get used to that. And that's what going to give you the best chance of like doing your best on your big day. Great questions.
Thank you.
Hey, Christy,
Yeah.
how about if you've just maybe joined Fitme and you really have up to this point maybe not exercised at all, and steps haven't been your thing, you lead a pretty sedentary life. Would you recommend even building up to that 30 minutes potentially?
Yeah. You have to start where you are. So if 30 minutes is too hard, that's okay. Like you're in the right place. Just start where you are. If it starts with 10 minutes every day, that's all you got. That's fine. And then, but we want to get to that minimum of 30 minutes eventually. Or that can be like a good goal. Yeah, you really have to, everybody has to start where they are right now. But if you're not starting where you are and trying to improve some piece of this, then you're missing part of what you're doing this for. So there's no like, oh, that'll be fun in a couple months. No, we're doing this now. Like you should be walking now. You should be doing some sort of strength training now. Let's start building it in. And if it's not pushing you, then it's not doing anything. So let's have it push you a little bit. If you've been walking 15 minutes for the past 6 months, let's bump that joker up to 25 minutes. Time to push it a little bit and move forward. That's what you're doing. But that's a great question, Paige. You start exactly where you are. Anything else, guys? I love it. Well, hopefully we covered some good stuff that was helpful. I wanted to kind of do a mixture of myth busting and just give again a little bit of context for why we talk about movement in Fitme and what we mean when we say that. Because it doesn't let you off the hook anymore. Can't be like, well, it's my rest day, I'm just gonna lay here. Nope. We're moving every day. Our bodies are made to move. And so build it in, and Atika's right. When it's cold and it's rainy and gross, you might have to get creative. But if you want it, then you'll do it. You'll find a way to do it. So if that is, doing a walking, again, there's so much free stuff on YouTube around exercise. There's probably like a walking in place class you could take, with music, or you could just get, again, if depending on your budget, investing in a treadmill isn't the worst idea if you live in a place with terrible weather. It might be a reality for you. I got my like desk treadmill for a couple $100 on Amazon. Totally worth it. Cause I can walk inside whenever I want. Cause I live in a rainy place, a dark, rainy, cold place. So it was worth it for me. So what do you need to be successful? And again, you don't need to buy a treadmill if you don't want to, or it's not in your budget, but you can be successful just by doing like an indoor YouTube, walking class. Cool, guys. Well, if you have any questions, reach out. I want you to tell your coach what your weekly movement plan is, what your schedule looks like around movement. And if you have questions that you think of later, then reach out. If you have strength training that you have questions around, make sure you reach out to your strength coach, or if your regular coach, if you're following the group program, we want to help you do that. And if you're like, I do want to start walking more, but I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing or how much, then have that conversation so that we can help you start to make it progressive so that you're moving forward and making progress. Awesome, guys. Well, have a wonderful evening. I'm going to go do some meal prep and feed these kids. If you need anything, just reach out. It was good seeing you.
Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.